Dude, there are two types of programmers in this world, man. There are the programmers that actually want to be the computer nerds that study logic, that study mathematics, that are very good and very gifted at a lot of those things, that actually love the puzzle pieces of programming. And then I think that there's this other set of programmers, this other greater flock of programmers that can actually do it day to day. But then, they're successful at being able to be able to get the job done, but not necessarily, be in coding for the actual passion of solving problems and programming logic or looking at the beauty of a programming language. What I mean by that is that other person, that other type of programmer, I think, is like the entrepreneur that kind of looks at programming and how it can enable them to do something better than what they could do before without them having that knowledge, whether it's just logic knowledge. Or whether or not they're able to use the programming language to be able to do something that they weren't able to do before, whether it's automation or something to that effect. So I think that there is hope for both types of programmers, though, honestly, because there's going to be the programmers and the Facebooks. Like if you look at the Spicy J, who is one of the major developers behind React, or the Dan Abramoffs of the world and things like that. Those people are naturally gifted. They're people that essentially, if they were a carpenter, they would look at a tree and understand how they could actually make a wooden chest, like a shiny wooden chest, cherry wood or whatever the hell it is. But there's those types of programmers that can literally make something from nothing, and those are, like I said, are the Spicy J's and the Dan Abramoffs, the John Skeets of the world. And then there's the vast majority of other types of programmers that I've been talking about for a long time, which are the web developers, the typical even game programmers, game developers, automation developers, even UX designers and things like that. So I think that there should be two distinct, separate types of fields for programming. For me, when I was first getting involved in this whole thing, I was looking at programming languages, libraries, and frameworks, and then immediately from an entrepreneur's point of view, what can that do for me? What can that do for the business that I'm trying to create? How can I make money with that? That is, I think, one side of the programming equation that I've personally seen where I don't see it in other people. I see it a lot of, oh yeah, that person's made a lot of money doing this and that, and I want to make a lot of money too. But I'm still more into the nerdy aspect of just like being involved in coding. And here's the thing, like if you're going to be a software engineer for a major development company, especially a software development company, they love the nerdy types. They love the Dan Abramoffs and the John Skeets of the world, because that is, those are the people that can literally make something from nothing. That is to an extent, like if you're a software development company. Now, if you're a business that has a technological need, like you have a lot of stuff that you need to automate, that you want the customers to be able to do that had manual or human intervention, then those types of things can be solved by people that don't necessarily have to be the Dan Abramoffs of the world. I always say Dan Abramoff because actually my buddies they poke fun at me when I'm talking about Dan Abramoff, because whenever I can't figure something out and it has to do with like ES6 or React or Redux, my running joke with them is I'm like, damn you, Dan Abramoff, or like I for whatever reason, like I kind of picked him out of the blue just as like the scapegoat for my lack of ability to understand a problem at a given time. But really, it's just a joke. But it is funny how he just comes naturally out when I'm talking to you guys. But so the thing is like I have personally met people that are like Dan Abramoff, and then I've met people that are not. There's and like I would say, the majority of them are not like that. And luckily for a lot of those people, a lot of business needs out there are not necessarily relying upon those types as well. So can you build a wooden chest? Like if you're a carpenter, can you build a house out of a tree? Like obviously it's going to take multiple trees or whatever, but there are certain people that understand exactly what it is that they need to do, and they kind of just like make something from nothing. And then there's a lot of people that just can't do that. And if you ask me the question, because I'm sure some of you guys are probably asking me, like, where am I on that? Like, am I that type of developer? I don't really know. I really don't. I think that when I got into programming because I wanted to solve business problems. I wanted to be a businessman. I was going to school for business administration, and I worked for a major corporation on the business side of things. I wasn't in IT. So I understood the the importance of IT, but that wasn't really where my interest lied when I was first getting into all of this stuff. So I think some of it was superficial, like, you know, when I was first getting in, and like, you know, the YouTube and Facebooks of the world and things like that, making the news and all the, you know, the money. And back in those days, I thought just a simple idea could be, you know, brought to fruition with a little bit of a hard drive and effort and things like that. But so, you know, am I that creative type? I think I am in some extent, because I have created websites. I've created this channel. This channel has now had it's almost 7 million views. So that's 7 million people out there have watched me. Maybe multiple people over and over again. But either way, there's 7. Like, in fact, let me check my stats real quick. So just in the last 28 days, I've had almost 5 years of content watched on my channel. So to me, like, okay, I may not be the best developer in the world, but clearly I have a creative passion and a drive and things like that. And I think a lot of you guys subscribe to me for that. And I honestly think that, especially as I get older, like, I'm curious to know whether or not I'm in that first group of developers, which is like, you know, like the nerdy, I love to program, there's nothing better in life than programming. And then there's the other people that are like, hey, I can use programming because I can make money with programming. I can solve problems that I have. I can be creative with programming. And I'm sure that the two sides there overlap to some extent. But I really think that I'm on the latter half of that. I would have to say that if I had to choose between the two, that I would be on the latter half. Now, the thing is that even if you're like the nerdy coding programmer type, I mean, sometimes you run out of that piss and vinegar that I was telling you about, and I've talked about that in other videos and things like that. And luckily for even those types, there are other career paths, like for when that might end up happening. And that's when you kind of go into management, or you like look at leadership, or you start going into consulting and things like that. And then you have, like I said, the other side where I feel like I lean more towards. Is like the business creative side. Like, how can I use this technology? Is it really beneficial for me? Those are still very important type of people, I believe, because they're the ones who aren't necessarily looking for the most artistic, like, or even most logically sound solution for something. They're looking from a business need. How can I accomplish a business specific goal in the shortest amount of time, with the least amount of man hours and things like that? So once again, the two sides overlap. I think that there's obviously, if you ask like a super nerdy Dan Abramoff of the world, like, he's gonna be like, well, Redux solves all kinds of business needs and things like that. You know, of course they're gonna feel that they're solving the same problems, and then you're gonna have other people that are like more just, you know, kind of get it done types of people that are like, no, I can use. I don't need to use React, ES6, and Angular or something like that. I'm just gonna stick with the more old school Ruby on Rails, Python, Django. I'm going to go to the market first. I'm going to see whether or not the market is going to accept my product. I'm going to spend more time in marketing and things like that, because we all know that if people aren't out there using your product, it doesn't matter how well it's designed, it's not going to make you any money, and it's going to be a failure. So, you know, getting to the market first, that whole lean startup type of mentality, that's where I feel like programming, and a large extent, should be. Another thing I want to mention is that, and I plan on talking about this more at length, but programming is something that everybody should be getting into. I know that some of you guys have reached out to me. You're like, I don't know if I want to be a senior developer. I don't know if I want to be a software developer or whatever. Maybe I just want to learn Python. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, we are living longer now than we've ever lived in the past, especially like in the United States. When Social Security was first implemented, I believe the average lifespan was around 60 or 61. And then you weren't even eligible for it until like, what, 63? I could be wrong on those numbers. But now the average lifespan is like 82. By the time you fast forward a couple of decades, we're going to be like the average lifespan into the hundreds. So can you be a developer later on in life? I think you absolutely can. And I think that, you know, granted, you're not going to be that first type of nerdy type of programmer I was telling you about that's going to be, you know, making new software languages from nothing. I mean, at least in my opinion, that's probably not, you know, the path that one should be striving for at that point. I think it's more about, how can I use programming to be a better employee, to be a better husband, a better father, like a better everything. Like, you can be you can use programming to whatever sort of advantage that you see fit. And I've talked about this as well. Like in different, you don't necessarily have to be in software and technology. You can be in plumbing or HVAC or trucking and logistics, whatever. It's like you can find your niche in any of this stuff, and programming is going to make that easier. I really do. I think it's going to make it easier. At the very least, if you never become a programmer and you never even use programming, code that you've written specifically for your business and things like that, at least having superficial knowledge of that still makes you a better and more knowledgeable person overall. So that's my thoughts tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Also, check out my sponsor, Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp. They made this video possible. And just so you guys know, Dev Mountain is a coding bootcamp that's in person, so it's not online. A lot of people have criticism towards online bootcamps because they kind of cheat a little bit in the fact that when you're going to an in-person developer bootcamp, you're actually working with real programmers, real people who have been in the industry, and they're going to be focusing on technologies like jQuery, JavaScript, Node, Angular. They have 12 and 16-week courses. If you need housing opportunities, you can reach out to them. The link to Dev Mountain is in the description tab below, so check them out. And I know it's expensive, guys, but people are getting hired with bootcamp certificates, so that is good news. And hopefully we can continue to change the world in that regard. All right, take care. Bye.